Welcome to the Dreamer Podcast, episode 3. And this week we are delighted to have Hall of Fame trainer Lee Freedman with us for a bit of a discussion. How are you, Lee?
Dave, I'm really well, thanks. It's great to be with the Dreamers and on the Dream Network.
That's good. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
There's a bit to go through. You've got a long life story. We could be here for hours, but we're going to try and get to some of the highlights tonight, and then discuss our 2-year-olds that you've got in training with us. I suppose first thing is, a few people wouldn't know. I know a lot about you, obviously, through our friendship, but there's a few things that some of the listeners wouldn't know. And I suppose just starting out as a young man in your teenage years, did you actually have a desire to be a trainer, a horse trainer?
Not really. I went to school. I was a bit undecided what I wanted to do, and I thought I would do vet science. And I tried to get into vet. I failed. I failed by about 7 or 8 marks to make vet. They were pretty strict on it in those days. You had to have 90 plus scores on your tests to get into vet, and I just failed there. But I got early acceptance into ANU in Canberra, the National University, and I went there. And what you could do in those days was you could do a 1-year science, a 3-year science degree. But if you passed or you got honours or something in your first year, you could switch over to Sydney Uni and do vet. That was my plan. That went horribly wrong when I majored in snooker and beer drinking and didn't do much study.
Yeah.
Just a letdown after school, I think. And anyway, it just wasn't for me. I didn't like the academic side of it all that much. And after passing my first year, I just thought, I don't think I could stick this out. So I pulled the pin, and that's when I started to develop the interest in horse training, because I had run the stud at Yass for 7 years, and I knew a lot about the breeding side of the game, and I knew a rudimentary amount about the training side through trial and error and through watching, some very good trainers that the old man had horses with. So, that started to become more of an interest for me then.
So was that your early days with your father, Tony? Is that where you started, or did you start somewhere else?
No, started with Dad. Dad didn't know a lot about training either, but he muddled his way through. For a guy who wasn't raised with horses or had a lot of influence with horses, he actually worked a lot of things out pretty well. And we trained a lot of winners from Yass. He was a real punt trainer though. He loved to punt and trying to set horses up for a win, and we're pretty good at it. In those days, I think we had a strike rate of about 7 or 8 out of 10, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, very good. So how many years were you sort of working around that with your dad?
Well, post-uni, I was there running the stud then for 6-7 years and mixing that up with riding a bit of track work and doing a lot of race meetings with the horses around southern New South Wales. So I was there for the next 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 years.
And then you moved to Melbourne, or was there somewhere else?
Moved to Sydney, Dave.
Yeah.
Went to Sydney to Warwick Farm, and I was renting a yard with 6 stables off a bloke who used to have Bantam chooks, and the bloke was a bit eccentric by some measures. He used to wander around in a smoking jacket talking to the chooks, and the chooks used to roost on the horses' backs, and it was quite different, but. It was a great introduction. Only 6 horses, and Anthony was with me. And we had a 2-bedroom flat we rented in Liverpool, and we had 6 horses. That's how we started.
Yep. And then how long were you there for?
Only a year. I got really sick of Warwick Farm after a year. There wasn't much happening. The AJC,
there wouldn't have been much out there those days.
Nothing. No, they put all the young trainers out there and kept all the older ones in at Randwick and that.
Randwick, yeah.
Yeah. So the big deal was to get to Randwick. Not so much now, but there's training centres all over the place. But I couldn't see a path clear there, and it was actually the old man who suggested that we move to Melbourne because we could buy an old trotting stable on the Maribyrnong there. The old bloke had the house, 8 boxes I think up the top, and then you went down the hill to the river, and there was another 4 in a little shed down there. So we could have up to sort of 11, 12 horses. and we
Yeah.
couldn't fill the joint initially. So we had a big snooker table. We used to supplement our income with illegal two-up games on Saturday nights.
So who moved to Melbourne? Was it just Anthony, or did Michael and Richard go as well?
No, just Anthony and me to start with, and then Richard joined us later. He was going into building like his father, but the call of the horses was too much. And then Michael, when the old man died, Michael had to finish school, so he finished school in Melbourne, and then he did a couple of other jobs for a while, and then he eventually joined us in the business.
So you're in Melbourne now with all the brothers, and you're working together, and you moved to Epsom, didn't you? First, as your big main training base.
No, we were training out of Flemington.
Flemington as well before that.
Yeah, we were at Flemington first, and then we increased our capacity a bit at Flemington, and then the opportunity came to take over Floyd Podgornick's horses in Epsom, and he had a big stable that he built there, and he had about 60 in work. So Richard went down there and ran that operation, and Anthony and I ran the Flemington operation.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And Michael was working with you then?
At this stage, I think he had come on board. Yeah, would have been the mid-'80s or late '80s, yeah.
And you got a nickname that some people may remember, FBI, the Freedman Brothers Incorporated. Who gave you that name? Who came up with it?
I don't know. It was someone in the press. I mean, it has been tampered with a bit. We have been called the fat bald idiots too. But that became quite a thing. I think it was the corporate suit and the Ray-Bans and all that sort of rubbish, and we looked like we worked for the FBI, and it just tied in. I don't know. It was good. It was good though. It was good advertising.
Yeah, it was good advertising, and I mean I'm talking back in the early '90s. Yes. Now, when you trained 4 Golden Slipper winners in a row, and the last one in 1996 was Merlene, and I think was it Tui's who said to you before the running of that, if you won 4 in a row, that you had a lifetime supply of beer.
They did, and they had a big double semi parked at the races with 1,000 slabs of beer on it, and that was supposed to be the beer. And but I didn't like their beer so much. What we were doing was swapping the monthly allowance of beer for some red down at the mate's grog shop, right? And they found out.
Are you still getting that monthly supply?
100% no.
No.
That stopped in the late 90s, I think. Yeah.
So it wasn't a lifetime supply of beer is not a lifetime's worth. It's only a couple of years, is it?
Yeah, well, look, I'm still here, but there's no beer.
So since then, obviously you've had a lot of success, and we won't go through all the different horses, and everyone's now sort of working in their own right with a lot of success. Obviously, Anthony has now taken on his son Sam, and Richard's working with his son Will, and Michael is on his own at Randwick. So, I mean, it's been a dynasty of Freedmans. Pretty much Cummings family is probably the only family that, sort of stretches far and wide. And your daughter as well now is a big player in the industry, in the media, and you must be very proud of her, her progress and what she's achieved.
Oh, for sure, Dave. She's worked very hard at it. She started out as a coffee and tea girl at 3AW 20 odd years ago, and or maybe not that long, maybe 18 years ago. And from there, she moved up to getting into radio, and then she had a permanent spot on Saturday mornings at RSN, I think, back in the day. And then 9 picked her up, and then 9 dropped her, and then 7 picked her up, and then TAB picked her up, and all the time she's had a great a coach and mentor in Bruce McAvaney. He taught her a lot of the stuff to do, how you do media properly and how you research stuff. And Bruce is a very good friend of ours, and he thinks she's one of the best people she's ever trained, which is a big compliment from him.
Yeah, she seems to be just so good in the media now. I've watched her a lot over the years since I've known you as well, and Yeah, she's so polished now when she's talking to people, and her knowledge of racing and sports in general is quite. When you mention Bruce McAvaney, then that's obvious that's where she gets. That's probably her biggest mentor, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's who taught her the value of researching everything properly before you do the event, so you don't sound like you're half baked, you know.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
she
Yeah.
can do anything now, cricket, athletics, anything. If she does enough study on it, she can sound like she's half expert.
So, yeah, now, and through the years, you've won nearly every Group 1 in Australia. So at the moment, there's a bit of a war between Sydney and Melbourne, especially during these spring carnivals. It's from my point of view, it's disappointing because you don't get all the good jockeys in the one state on the one day and all the same horses. But what's the most prestigious Group 1 for you that you think's is in your eyes the Group 1 you'd still love to win, even though you've won probably all of them?
That's becoming a good question because, you know, you look at the cup field for this year with the scratchings and the rule outs and that, it's almost like an ordinary Saturday handicap, really.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, not quite, but, you know, it's not hot. It's not, and that can't continue to happen because it'll lose, you know, its effect. I think it's probably, you know, now they made it a Group 1, I think probably the Everest is the one that I would like to win. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Melbourne Cup's still front of mind. I'd love to win another Melbourne Cup, but it's certainly lost a lot of cast, its appeal over the last few years, and I honestly think it's, and I've said this all along, I think it's a lot to do with they were bringing out so many internationals that it just flooded the race with horses that no one knew.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the same appeal to my generation or, you know, even 30, 40-year-olds because it's not the race it was. It's become like put on for Europeans and that sort of thing. And
it doesn't have the true wait for eight stars that it used to have either, did it?
no,
Like Via Sistina was the wait for eight star. She chose not to go there. Like when McIvy Diva won it for you, she won a Cox Plate. She was second in Caulfield Cups and ran in wait for age races. And
he won the Menzies Turnbull, BMW, all wait for age races. So, yeah, great horse. But there's no great horses in it at the moment. The last few years, yeah, Very Elegant was terrific in it. And I was surprised, not that I question what Chris Waller does, but I was surprised after that win Saturday that they weren't going straight to the Melbourne Cup because, gee whiz, anything to win a Cox Plate by 8 in an average year is going to be hell of a hard to beat in a Melbourne Cup.
Yeah,
but then you have these other races like Champions Day when they've got to go again and probably worth nearly, not quite, but nearly as much as the Melbourne Cup, you know?
Yeah, that Champions Day has really been improved, hasn't it, with the prize money and the prestige of it all now.
I think it's nearly their best day, Dave, you know?
Yeah. Definitely Derby Day and Champions Day. So, I mean, from Melbourne and winning all the Group 1s with your brothers, you've all sort of went your own way. You went to Singapore for a few years.
Yep.
And then you decided for a lifestyle change and ended up at the Gold Coast. You've been there about 4 years now. So how's life on the Gold Coast?
Yeah, look, it's all right. It's taken me a while to get used to the place. It's a great holiday destination, great for sales and that, but different thing living here. So you've got to get to know a lot more people. We didn't know many people when we got here. We've got some good friends here now, amongst our other good friends interstate, but, you know, people that we see quite regularly. We found out all the good places to go and eat and all that sort of good stuff.
Right, yeah.
And look, and the climate's just fantastic, and you get mild winters, and when you're a bit down on the place, you get up on a spring morning and it's 25 degrees and beaming sun, and you know it's going to be a great day. It's a happy place to live that way.
Yeah, that's right. And you've got a good team behind you there. I mean, I know we've been involved with you for 4 years, and your team's been very consistent. With your staff.
Yeah, I've got terrific staff. Once we weeded through, we were very lucky that the Robsons came to us from down in Mornington. They, Gregor and Donna, they were fantastic. They've been fantastic. They've been the backbone of the stable, and we've grown our staff around them. Yeah. And them running the place and educating the staff. And We have very, very good staff. Their attention to detail is good. Their consistency of turning up on time is good. They're gentle with the horse. That's my main concern. I hate people who come into your stable and start roughing the horses. That's just no good. It's a no-no with me. And these people are very gentle with the horses. And we've actually trained a couple of people that had no idea about horses but just wanted to be in it. And I quite like that because you can teach them the way you want them to be, not the way they were taught by somebody else.
Yeah. And why the Gold Coast? Was that a particular reason to go there? Was there, other options like, Brisbane or anywhere else?
There were other. I mean, Brisbane could have been an option. At one stage, Sunshine Coast was an option. But what drew me and Joe to the Gold Coast was all the works that they were doing. They had $35 million of works. We didn't know how much that would interfere with our business, which it has over the last few years. We've had to move stables 7 times, waiting for the final construction at Train Tech. And in the end, we didn't even go to Train Tech. We ended up in a stable that I leased from Ross Lau next door to Peter Roble. And we're very happy there because we don't have to share anything. We do our stuff in our own time. The boxes are big and spacious. And I was down there this afternoon. It was really hot up here. And with all the fans and the openness of it through the cross breeze and that, it's very, very nice place for horses. And as it turned out, we couldn't have got into Train Tech. We were in the back of, as you know, in the back of Magic Million, on and off for a while. And when they had to get us out for the January sale, they hadn't finished Train Tech. So it was just lucky that the stable came along and it was just perfect for me because it's around about the 30 boxes, and that's about the number I want to have in work and about the same out of work,
Yeah, and the Gold Coast Turf Club, as you mentioned, we're doing a lot of redevelopment there, and and I know it's taken longer than expected to actually get there. But what have they? What's the additions included? I know there's going to be night racing there. That's got to be something really exciting.
Yeah, the lights are up, Dave, and about 3 or 4 weeks ago they ran the meeting as an early twilight. This the first 2 races. The last 2 races could be run in the dark, so they could use the lights. So we actually got to see it in real time a few weeks ago, and it was terrific. I mean, the backdrop of the Gold Coast, skyline at night, which is impressive, and then the lighting and your closeness to town and the facilities. I'll be very surprised if it's not a real boom in the night racing, particularly with a population that changes all the time there with holiday people and that.
Yeah, I know Magic Millions this year, this carnival, they're going to have a twilight meeting for the Wave race day.
Yeah.
Is there a date for the night racing to kick off there yet, or?
It moves around a bit. I think it's the 20th of November. December, is it? December. Yeah, I think it's about then. And of course, that'll be a boomer. They're planning a whole heap of surprises on the night, and it's only 5 days before Christmas, so there'll be a hell of a crowd there, I would have thought.
Yeah, and that's Friday night. There's going to be the night racing there. Is that going to replace the Saturday race day in the future? Do you know?
I don't think so. I think that's something they're still tinkering with, I think. But it is planned to race there Friday, Saturday.
And what about the tracks, the training tracks there? Have they made any additions? Any inner tracks, sand tracks, synthetic tracks?
Yeah. Okay. Well, what they've done, we've got a really good poly track here now, which has been in for about 12 months, and it's starting to work really well. The bee grass was completely pulled up and redesigned and recambered and returfed, and it's a good surface. We used it this week for the first time in a long while. We get the course proper outside on Tuesday mornings for horses entered for Brisbane, so that's good to have as well to train stayers and that sort of thing. We've got pools, we've got everything that the other centres have got now, whereas the old Gold Coast centre was pretty ordinary,
Yeah, and they've got a tunnel underneath that goes from the tie-ups to the track now, isn't there? Or
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And what about those tie-up stalls? They were a bit old, and have they refurbed those?
Yeah, well, they got older, but they have. At my instigation, they've recovered all the chains with plastic, so the horses don't rip their mouths, and they've put in some rubber in some of them, and they're planning to completely retar the main walkway through that barn. So it'll be up to scratch. But the long-term plan here is that they're going to put an international hotel on that site and move the type stores up to that blank, few acres area they've got up the end of the top of the straight.
Right, okay.
And which will be even better for us because it'll mean your horses can go straight across to the types.
Yeah.
Not that we use them a lot anymore. We work a lot from the boxes, and it suits our system better to do that. But look, there's a lot of things going on here. Train tech's now open, and the people in there are saying it's good accommodation, very safe for the horses, etc. But like all jobs everywhere since COVID, there's hold-ups. There's supply hold-ups with materials. There's hold-ups with tradesmen because there's so few still up and about that they've got so much to do that everywhere in Australia's been tough since COVID in business.
Yeah. So, but that has attracted a lot of other stables around there. So obviously people are coming there. So your decision to go there 4 years ago has been a wise one, I suggest.
Well, I guess in a way it's been vindicated so far because so many of those big stables are apart from Kieran, I don't think he's too keen on it, but Chris Waller's got a stable here of 40 horses, and that's a good calling card to have people like him here, and myself, and 2 or 3 other well-known trainers. It's a great advertisement for the place, and I think Chris is very happy with the place.
Absolutely. So since you got there 4 years ago, we joined up again and started getting some horses trained by you. And the first one we gave you 4 years ago was a little horse, Divine Prophet horse that we didn't buy. We didn't pay much for at the Magic Million sale. And
Dave, you stole him. You did steal him, 20,000.
And we just said, play around with this one. And he ended up being Soothsayer, who I think was your first stakes placed horse since you'd been back.
Yeah, that's true.
He's 2 stakes placings, had 15 starts for 5 wins and 3 placings. And he's been out for a year. So he's back now after doing some rehab for a year on a tendon injury. Yeah. And he rolled up, I think it was a week ago. So how's he coming back to having another prep with you?
Well, look, he's been a terrific horse, really. We love him because he was our calling card horse for quite a long while. And, that 15 starts, 5 wins could be a lot better if you took out the handful of wet track runs that he had and a couple of races where things didn't work out. His record's very, very good. He's very honest. He looks unbelievable. It's the best I've ever seen him look. In fact, you don't want a horse having a year off, but if they've got to and they come back in, he's probably grown and developed and matured a lot more in that year. And I think you saw his trial the other day. It was like he's never trialled like that before, where, if the little Shelley had let him go, he would have run right over the top of them,
Yeah.
But listen, he's had a nasty injury and we're pretty circumspect about it. We've got to keep working away and just keep him monitored and make sure everything's all right.
Yeah, well, his form when he was racing, he had form through Redina, who won an Epsom, Yellow Brick, who's been one of the best horses in Queensland, Hawaii 5-0, who's now standing at stud. So, his form is with Group 1 racing against them. And then the year after that, we followed up and we bought another little black horse by a new sire called Encryption, who we didn't know much about, and he was the half-brother, the Soothsayer, who's ended up being Encoder, who's starting this Saturday at Eagle Farm, and he's had 16 starts for 3 wins. But one of those wins was a Group 3 race, the Grand Prix, and I think that was your first stakes winner back in Australia since you arrived back.
Yeah, it has been to date. We haven't had many stakes horses here, but he's a good little horse. And once again, his record would have been a lot better had it not been for wet. Like during the winter, Dave, we had a plan to go to the Derby and those races, and it just did. And he ran fantastic, but it just didn't work out with the weather and that. He ran a brilliant race in the Ipswich Cup. It was for a 3-year-old, that's good going, and he's pretty tired his last run, and we put him out. But I can't fault him back in. He's in great nick, and actually Boris come and rode him this morning, just a little bit of pace work, and skipped up a furlong, and he said he feels terrific, So I hope he's in for a really good prep because he deserves to have one.
So there's those, horses like that. I mean, as you said, you've only got a smaller stable now, and I take it you want to just have, more a smaller amount of better horses and sort of concentrating. Does that help with staff morale, having horses like that in the stable?
Oh, 100%. As I said, we've got great staff, and one of them is Shelley Simmons, who looks after those horses and rides and work. And you couldn't find a more dedicated person to looking after horses. And she's having a week break, and she rings twice a day to see what's going on. So I don't think I've ever done that on a holiday. But she just loves the stable, and she loves working for us. And so she says. She loves those horses, more importantly.
Yeah, I think your stable staff have been really good with our owners as well, and we often do stable visits, and they're very welcoming. So I really appreciate that as well.
No problem.
We've got a new crop now of horses in the stable, and some 2-year-olds they've just become 2-year-olds. They haven't raced yet, but I think they're progressing well from what you've been telling me. But the first one is another encryption colt. We do like these encryption breed.
Yep.
We bought him at the Magic Million sale. I think it was the most expensive encryption sold to date. And we bought him at January in the Magic Millions. He's now a 2-year-old, unnamed, but he's he's out of Lady Bing, who is a Sebring mare, and Encoder is actually out of a Sebring mare. So it's the same cross.
Yep.
He's a big scopy type. What have you seen from him, and what do you like about him? Is there anything that you pick up from these 2-year-olds as you're educating them?
Yeah, well, as you know, our system, I'm in and out in it. I like to do it in short bursts and reinforce what we've spoken and see if we can teach him a bit more without really stressing him. And he's been in a couple of times, and this time he's in now. He's grown he's grown flat out. He's a big horse now, big striding horse. The staff all like him, the riders all like him, but he's definitely not an early 2-year-old. I think you won't see him on a racetrack, I wouldn't think, until sort of in the autumn of next year. But he's going the right way. He's a beautifully natured horse, and he's got a great big stride, and gives every indication that he'll make a real stay of that horse.
And these horses that we've got with you, and probably a lot of your stable, are in this cutest bonus system that they have in Queensland, which I think is, for 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, one of the best bonus systems going around. Do you sort of target your horses at these cutest races, knowing that there is these bonuses?
Yeah, we definitely try to. It doesn't always work out that way, as you know, but we try to as much as we can, because I'm not sure about the sum that he's won, but I think Soothsayer's won 140,000 in bonuses.
Yeah,
like that's a lot of money in bonus money, and it's a very good scheme. They're very sought after up here. Those, even the March sale now, which is mainly cutest horses, they're very well sought after by the local trainers, because there is that bonus money attached to them.
Yeah. So this horse is, as I said, Magic Millions and cutest. His third dam is Wraparound. You would have been training when Wraparound was racing, and she was trained by the Hayes team.
Yeah, Colin Hayes had her, I think.
Yeah.
And she was a Group 1 quality mare.
Yep.
Good family. I've had a couple out of that family before that won, 6, 7, 8 races in Melbourne. So it's a good, strong old family, and it can produce a good horse, and that's what we're hoping here. It works again.
You talked about stride length as well before, and he's got a big stride. That's one thing Greg Bennett was talking about in his podcast, was sort of, like that action, that stride length. Is that something that you sort of look for as well when you're looking at younger horses?
Yeah, I think I'm not completely sold on the idea, except for horses that tend to want to run 1,400, 1,600 and beyond up to staying distances tend to have the big stride lengths. Sprinters can. We've had several good sprinters with big stride lengths, but a lot of them don't have as much as the staying bred horses. But it's certainly, it's one consideration out of a lot of things.
Yeah. And then the next horse actually is another encryption. It's by out of Lady Provocateur. Now, this colt, he's actually a full brother to a horse that you had earlier this year, a horse called Valvolia, a filly. So he's the full brother. Now, she I think she was a horse that you had a big opinion of when before she went out for her debut. Unfortunately, she fractured her pelvis at her first start, and she's ill-fated now. But I think you had a big opinion of her, and what we did was when that happened, we knew about the full brother who was sitting in a paddock in Victoria, in a dusty paddock he was, and we sent out Lenny Russo, and we said, Lenny, go and have a look at this horse and just tell us, if he's got anything going for him. And Lenny said, well, he's very hairy, he's living in a dust bowl, not getting fed, but he's got a good frame, and he's got a great attitude and temperament. So we got him up to Queensland, spelled him up at Newington, and he grew a lot. He's put on a lot of weight. He's a different horse now, and you had him in for a prep just recently, and I think you were quite impressed by what you saw.
Yeah, we liked him. He's improved so much. I mean, when he went out this last time, he's just a different horse, as you said. He's a beautiful horse, great nature, good doer, and from what they described to me as what he looked like early doors, I can't even see it anymore. He's a big, he's not as big as the other Encryption, but he's a well-built horse, and as I say, he's a great doer, so that'll help him keep improve as well.
And I don't know if you recall Valvoline, his full sister. What's he like as a type compared to her?
He's stronger than her.
Yep.
She was quite a good sized filly, but he's got a lot more strength than her, which is a good thing.
And I think he showed you he was fairly precocious last prep. I mean, not saying that we need to push him as a 2-year-old, but he did look like he would get there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it gave me that impression. He was working with some sharper types, and he was holding his own pretty well.
Yep.
But he's a horse. You're mindful of the fact that he's had a rough start probably, and he's still growing and that. So next time in, we'll get a bit more serious with him and see what we've got. See if we can get to the races next time.
So he's
a very nice horse.
When you're educating these 2-year-olds, you're working them with other 2-year-olds, or do you try them with older horses as well? Or
mainly with other 2-year-olds until they learn the basics of what they're expected to do in that work. And once they've done that, if they've got the quality, then we'll put them up against a better old horse and see what we've got. But generally, the season works this way with 2-year-olds. Some of them go early, and the ones that go early and go well, and we had, for a small stable, we had 6 or 7 2-year-old winners last year, which was pretty good for us. And then you've got a benchmark for your 2-year-olds you can work them with, and you say, well, this is the city class. A couple of George Alamontes, I think, a Stitzel filly of his won in town. So she's a good benchmark when you've got 2-year-olds to say, well, she can win in town. This horse goes as good or if not better than her.
Yep. So he's been tipped out now, so he's having another break. And
he's had about a month, I think, at KBL. He's had about a month there. And I sort of run off Candace a bit there when she says, it's starting to put on too much weight, I'll get him back in. But she does a great job with the horses, and she'll let me know. But I'm expecting to speak to her in the next week or two, yeah.
You've been using KBL a lot, and I know Candace, and many people may not, but she has a bit of a knack for getting weight onto these younger horses.
Yeah, fantastic. And the interesting thing I've noticed about training in Queensland is that when you spell the horses here in this climate, and you go to the better places, like Newington and KBL and Warina and these places, where they're looking after the horse, they've got good pasture, they're good feeders. The horses all grow and develop so quickly, much quicker than they do down south. And I think that's a weather thing. I think if you combine all the good things about their spelling place with the weather, you're getting really good results,
I think that was a tactic you used when you were training in Melbourne, didn't you?
Yes.
To spell your horses in winter up Queensland? Yeah.
Yeah, well, a month up here is worth probably 2 months down there.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't give them long spells unless they've got an injury and we have to rest them and that. But it's always been a great formula bringing horses here for the winter. And Anthony did it last year started to do it again the last 2 or 3 years with really good success. The Melbourne Cup winner won his first start in Australia up here. At the carnival, and then trained on to win the Melbourne Cup, Caulfield and Melbourne Cup. So
that's right. He's been doing it fairly regularly, Anthony, and obviously he's been very successful. I mean, just looking at the Spring Carnival here in Melbourne, when you see any horse from Queensland parade, they look so much nicer than the Melbourne horses with the.
They do. They get a head start at the beginning of the season. I mean, the others catch up by October, November. But early on, and I remember old Jeff Murphy, who was, before you were probably interested in racing, was a great trainer at Caulfield, very, very good trainer. And he bought a stable up here. This was never heard of back in those days, back in the 70s and 80s and that. And he bought a stable. And he used to move here for the winter with about 25 horses. And I'll tell you what, a lot of people made a lot of money back in them as soon as they hit Melbourne again, early in the season. They just go bang and win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where you got the idea from in the early days with your horses, moving them up?
I think so, yeah. I probably can't remember, but Jeff would have influenced me a bit because I used to bring it, when I first started training in the early 80s, I used to bring horses up here, and Jeff would always be up here with a lot of horses, and yeah, no, he swore by it, and he was very good at what he did.
Yeah. And the last one is the Alabama Express Coco Barchi colt.
Yeah.
He's a colt we bought from the Magic Millions March sale.
Yes.
And he is a November foal. He was a bit backward when we bought him, but Alabama Express was a sire that really had some really good results early on. He was only a first season sire last season, I should say, and we earmarked him as a bit of a sire to watch out for. We saw this colt. He's out of a Savabeel mare, Coco Barchi, who was a winner in New Zealand and actually ran fourth in a Group 2 race. So this is actually her first foal. But this colt was backward early days, but how's he progressed?
No, really well. I mean, the first time we got him in the winter, he had a long hairy coat and he got a really bad cold. He was just miserable and he looked terrible. So once again, we tipped him out. Well, he's come back a different horse. He's just he's a lovely horse now, and he's good average size. He's put on a lot of weight, and he's cheeky as all get out. And I love the breed. I bought another one of them this year myself, and I like him too. I think that Redoute sire line is proven to be really good. And this horse is doing a job. He had another winner at Randwick the other day. Doesn't have a lot to race, but and he's had 2 stakes winners, I think, or group winners in New Zealand. So, you can hear our storm going on.
Yeah, that's
no, look, he'll be
lovely
all right.
place, Queensland.
What's that? Yeah, it's a bit like living in Singapore. There's always storms and stuff going. Oh, the lights are going to go. Anyway, he's good, Dave. I think they're 3 really nice horses, all different, very much different horses, but in their own way, they're nice horses, and they've shown that improvement from prep to prep. And I think you can look forward to some good times with them.
You were talking about that Redoutes line, which is actually the Danehill line.
Yeah.
And I know, sort of obviously followed the stable even before I met you, that you've had a lot of success with that Danehill line, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah, like Dane, that was a golden period of buying yearlings because we had, we got truckloads of Danehills, and every one of them, without fail, could gallop, And I think at one stage, with the early Danehills in this country, we had 25% of his worldwide stakes winners in our stable. Now, they weren't big stakes at that stage. They were later with the we won 2 golden slippers with them. But geez, if we could clone him, Dave, we'd have some good fun.
Yeah, well, you see less and less of his line now. That's
influence,
all.
Yeah.
So, as you say, Redoute is, she's Alabama Express is the son of Redoutes, but you don't see Redoutes anymore. You don't see, so you're seeing these sons of now that you've got to sort of concentrate on.
Well, interesting, as a diversion to what we're talking about, I bought a couple of Farnhams this year because down the line a bit, and the filly, 2 of my fillies are like clones out of the 90s. They're like Danehill fillies.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a good line too. I really do.
Yeah. And I think it was also when we've had chats, it's the fast sons of Danehill or that through that line that make the better stallions as well.
No doubt about that. I mean, and that's probably a self-fulfilling prophecy because a lot of the bigger grown ones that stayed at Trip, they were gelded anyway. So, but the fast sons of Danehill have, he's, I'm biased, but I think he's the greatest stallion ever stood here.
Yeah. Well, okay. Thank you, Lee. I know we've had a few technical difficulties today, but we got through it all.
Nothing we can't overcome, old son, you know.
I appreciate your time.
No worries.
It's been very interesting talking to you, and I'll be up soon when the Magic Millions is getting close by, and everyone coming up to Queensland again, and hopefully we'll have a few runners through that Magic Millions Carnival with you. So
I'm looking forward to it.
And we'll see you soon. Thanks, Lee.
Cheers, mate. See ya.